and welcome to Lunchtime Politics. First, the highlights. Presidential election petition court adjourns petition filed by the Allied People's Movement to June 21. Labour Party member, House of Representatives, urges presidential candidate of the party to accept outcome of the polls, says Nigeria is more important than anyone. Plus, former governor of Rivers State alleges he escaped death twice during his time as governor of the state. To the program, I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos, and we begin at the Presidential Election Petition Court, which has again adjourned the petition filed by the Allied People's Movement (APM) challenging the February 25 election victory of President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima of the All Progressives Congress (APC) to the 21st of June for hearing. The Presidential Election Petition Tribunal had fixed June 19 to commence hearing of the petition filed by the Allied People's Movement. At the resumed hearing, the party asked for a one-week adjournment, which was turned down by the court. The party had applied to the court for a date to commence hearing of the petition against the result of the February 25 presidential election, which had earlier been delayed over their inability to obtain a Supreme Court judgment. The ruling of the Apex Court being sought is the recent judgment which dismissed the People's Democratic Party's suit, which sought to nullify President Tinubu's election based on allegations of double nomination against his running mate, Vice President Kashim Shettima. The party claims the ruling is necessary for them to make progress in their case because it had far-reaching pronouncements which are relevant to certain core issues of dispute in its case. Lawyers to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the All Progressives Congress and President Bola Tinubu raised no objection to the request for adjournment as they prayed the court to adjourn hearing till the 20th of June 2023. The presiding judge, Haruna Samani, after listening to both sides, granted the application and adjourned the case to Wednesday, the 21st of June for commencement of hearing. And to other stories now, the governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, has pleaded with his predecessor, Wike, not to stay away from him, even if he crosses over to the other side of the political divide. Governor Fubara said this during a Thanksgiving reception for Mr. Wike on Sunday at his residence on Ada George Road. According to him, while we're seeing signs that it's like you want to go over to the other side, with everyone wishing that, please don't be too far from me because I know that the sharks, the tigers are really around looking for what to hurt. His appeal comes amid rumors that former Governor Wike could dump the People's Democratic Party for the ruling All Progressives Congress. Well, meanwhile, the former governor of Rivers State, Wike, says he was nearly killed by poisoning in 2018. Speaking during a Thanksgiving service at the St. Peter's Anglican Church in Obiapo local government area, he alleges he escaped death twice during his time as governor of the state. The former governor says he was hurriedly flown out of the country for medical treatment. He said after the presidential primary election of the PDP in 2022, one of the engines of the aircraft he boarded while traveling to Abuja exploded a few minutes after takeoff. The former Rivers State governor also explained why he supported the new president of Senate, Godswill Akpabio's bid for the leadership of the 10th Senate. He said Senator Akpabio supported him with 200 million naira when he was contesting for governor in 2014.
December 2018, that day was the day my former chief of staff was going to have Thanksgiving. And I was to attend that Thanksgiving. on a Sunday. From that Sunday, I never came out, I never came down from my room. It was bad. There are words I don't want to use so that it don't look somehow. But those who attended the January 1st state banquet of 2019, we know that I never spoke that day. I just sat down there and I told my deputy governor to speak on my behalf. People didn't know what was going on. After that banquet, 12 midnight, I was taken out of the country because I thought it was over. When we got to Beirut, the doctors looked at me and I was looking at them. They were not telling me anything. They just said, look, we have to do so many tests. I'm just not talking. They came by the next morning and said, look, it was bad. My kidney had gone. My liver had gone. And they were looking at me. I don't know who told Okewale that it was my wife who told Okewale. He now called. He said, look, what is going on? I said, what did you hear? He said the way my wife spoke to him, is everything okay? I said, of course, everything is okay. And of course, the present governor of the state was also in the known. And I never knew that I've been poisoned in our campaign secretariat. My textiles all black. So the doctors did everything they could do. The next day they came back. They said, what is happening to you? That everything is turning around. I said, how? He said, look, my liver is functioning now. My kidney is functioning. I said, but you've not done so much treatment. Well, I just kept quiet. And the glory of God, after about 1 week, they said, look, I can now go.
Revelations there from the former governor of Rivers State. Let's move away to perhaps a little bit out of politics now. This is representatives of the federal government and leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC are resuming talks. We're expected to resume talks today on petrol subsidy removal palliatives. Recall that following the removal of the fuel subsidy as announced by President Bola Tinubu on May the 29th, 2023, the NLC had threatened to shut down the country's economy by embarking on an industrial action. However, on June the 5th, the NLC announced the suspension of its planned strike after a series of meetings with the federal government. The NLC and Trade Union Congress, however, made some demands which they expect could cushion the effect of the hike in the fuel price. Some of them, as you can see on the screen, include the increment of the minimum wage from 30,000 naira to between 150,000 and 200,000. It further urged President Tinubu to ensure that the borders are reopened to ensure smooth importation and exportation of food and farm products. It also expects the president to grant operational licenses for the creation of more modular refineries, as well as transparent agency to be set up to oversee the refineries. Now, on the issue of energy, Labour wants a review of the corrupt privatization, what it calls the corrupt privatization of the energy sector. It says that gave generation and sale of energy to private individuals who it alleges have not added value to the energy consumption in the country. It talked about further investment in alternate power supplies like solar systems. That should be put in place. It said the cost of running governance is also too high, and the NLC has the opinion that the number of appointments be brought down, plus microcredit scheme put in place compromise that will give loans to farmers, entrepreneurs at small-digit rates. It's expected that both parties would harmonize some of the demands in the meeting scheduled later today. Well, joining us to talk more about this, especially expectations ahead of that meeting, is an economist, Dr. Tokpe Fasua, who joins me virtually. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. First, fuel subsidy has been a thorny issue since we heard about it and since it's affected Nigerians. And it has been described by some as a subsidy that has now been transferred to the people to bear. Do you agree?
Well, invariably that's what it looks like. But of course, I don't think it will remain that way because, of course, whereas the government has bitten the bullet and done the needful in terms of walking away from all that fraud and whatever it was, now is the time to ask for the palliatives, and we expect the government to roll out something that's very robust beyond palliatives. Indeed, a kind of restructuring of the economy to ensure that the myriads of unemployed people have something to do, and those who are employed also get paid, and that they also have salaries that are worthwhile, and also perhaps indeed a re-engineering of our minds, if you like, such that there's this mad chase for fast money and all of that, which kind of vitiates any amount of money you pay people. People are not satisfied. We seem to be pursuing something or the other that can be caught. So I think all of that requires a robust communication strategy apart from an economic strategy. And I think I've also been hammering on the need for an inflation management strategy, because for now, the only thing we hear every time inflation is being spoken about, people are pushing the idea of the orthodox measures, which is basically a blunt instrument, which is in interest rates. However, for as long as we've moved up interest rates up to 18.5% monetary policy rate, which means that lending rates in the bank will start from something around 25% for those big companies, and then for smaller companies, perhaps 35%. In some instances, 40%. I've seen some of the returns that the banks have sent to central bank. If anybody goes on central bank website, you see that sometimes some of the banks report 40% lending rate for general trading. Now that the rates are kept moving up, perhaps it's up to 42%. And so I can imagine what that does to businesses and how many businesses can actually break even from such rates. So we expect a total package beyond whatever NLC is going to negotiate, because NLC and the other labor unions they're only talking for people who are in the unions, But however, we have 42 million MSMEs in this country under SMEDAN, micro, small, and medium, with 99% of them being micro businesses. Businesses that are basically struggling, one-man businesses, two-man, three-man businesses, and so on. We have all of those, and those are not in any of the unions. So whatever thinking must come from government must go beyond the labor unions. Let's think about how do we reposition, the vast majority of this economy.
I'm going to come back to perhaps some of the 7-point list that the NLC has put down and talk more about, the promises, because we know that on the back of this administration was, the solutions that they wanted to proffer to some of these issues, which also includes the removal of fuel subsidy. But then why is it taking this long for the palliatives to be in place? This was a decision that was long agreed by a number of people, but then these difficulties are being experienced by Nigerians, and that is in the now. We know that NEC was inaugurated last week with the governors and then the vice president, but then what have they done so far? And even if there are palliatives, is there a structure to identify those that need them the most?
Right. I think that also perhaps we have to hope that something good will come out, because again, what the government has done is to go for the most critical aspect of the problem, which is taking out that subsidy in the first place, which you've done. Now, remember that government is still settling down. Like you said, NEC was inaugurated last week, just last week. A few special advisors were appointed, some for the economy, and and of course, we can't even put in ministers until the new assembly settles down July 4th, Now, even if all of those were in place, what I think we should be pushing for is something that's comprehensive and robust, not a knee-jerk affair. That's like I said earlier on, something that would actually begin to alter positively the trajectory of the economy and how the economy interacts with each and every Nigerian. I personally believe that we have everything it takes. We have all the resources we need. We have all the time on our hands to be productive, and so on and so forth. So yes, it may seem like it's a bit late in coming, but I don't think it's too late. I think also that, there's what they call deferred gratification. Perhaps by the time we're going to be able to reap this, of course, we have to have a long-term view, but you are going to reap big as time goes on. Personally, you see that despite a lot of doubts that some people had about President Tinubu, we can see now he's getting a lot more converts, if only for the fact that he seems to be very decisive. That's something to hold on to. It's decisive. One other thing I'd want people to hold on to is that this is someone who's pro-poor, and his economic thinking is actually left of center. I was joking with a few liberal friends of mine that, hey, Tinubu seems to have carried enough sacrifices to the gods of liberal economics thus far. He has, deregulated fuel, petroleum prices. He has given the central bank leeway to be able to be more flexible around foreign exchange and what have you, and so on. So now is the time for the people to expect the goodies. So beyond labor, which is actually thinking in terms of people who are in their unions or people who are working, whether in the private or public sector, most of them in the public sector. That's why I wouldn't actually agree with the TUC when they were asking for 200,000 naira minimum wage. Where do you get the money from? Many states are yet to even comply with the 30,000 minimum wage, and a lot of the states are owing sometimes for 5, 6, 7, 8 months. So how does the private sector? Yes.
What do you propose could happen today? Could they get the increments from 30,000 to between 150 and 200,000? Do you see the borders being reopened?
I would not think so. Well, I don't know. You mentioned border. Yeah, maybe border. Of course, the idea behind opening border, that's a trade issue, if you like, mostly a trade issue. Why should the border not be opened, But hey, 150,000 to 200,000, I'm sorry to say, it'll be insane for the government to agree to that, honestly, if you ask me. Okay, but because once you commit to that, you're also committing the private sector. How many people can afford to pay their cleaners 150,000 or 200? I mean, but that's talking from a very public sector mentality where you believe that the government can print money and pay you, just as the government has been printing to pay salaries in the last X number of years. The reason why we have 23 trillion sitting in the CBN as ways and means. So I would certainly not agree with that. But of course, other things like, cutting the cost of government, absolutely bang on. And once we begin to see this, someone mentioned the other time when fuel price went up to 540, like in Abuja, that, hey, we wouldn't want to see government officials running around the streets with a 15, 20-car convoy. We can limit that to maybe the president, the vice president, and a few other people, maybe the state governors, if they were reasonable, they shouldn't have more than 6, 7 cars in their convoys. But for every Dixon and Harry to come, especially they have all these cars, they have them in Abuja, sitting down for them, dozens of cars in Lagos sitting down, even when they are governing in another state. And they come into all of those places and they run riots all over the place. We don't want to see that, and I think that's very legitimate on the part of the people. So I think that some of these concessions can be got from government, but I will personally not support 150,000 naira minimum. I mean, that's madness. I will support, though, a kind of rebate on payee, which goes back to the state. So pay as you earn. I think that the government should try and get the state to agree to cutting down pay as you earn, even though that's also a chunk of what the states declare as internally generated revenue. Most of what some of the states declare as IGR is the clawback, the payee, the clawback from civil servant. But now is the time to forgo some of those and strategically to say that for now we're forgoing some of those. We're now going to go after enforcement to ensure that everybody that deducts payee actually remits to government. About 30%, not 30 to 40% of companies only actually do the remittance, even if they bother to take payee. I've seen people who run multi-billion naira businesses who don't even charge payee on their staff. They don't even know they need to. And where they do, many don't remit. So now is the time. I believe that that number can be doubled. The states can make twice, even try some of the amounts that some of them make. Not only Lagos. Lagos is robust. Abuja seems to be a bit okay. We're losing so much in terms of those revenues that we can get. We have to actually reposition ourselves.
Indeed.
Yes.
We will continue to monitor, hope that they agree and harmonize some of this so that they can prevent that industrial action. We'd like to thank you. We appreciate your time. Dr. Tokwe, an economist. Thanks for joining us on the program. We'll move on to other stories now. A member of the House of Representatives, Amobi Oga, has admonished Nigerians, especially the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, to accept the outcome of the polls till God or the court says otherwise, saying that all winners of the just concluded general elections have the backing of God. Mr. Oga, who represents Isukwato Umunoche Federal Constituency of Abia State in the 10th Assembly, gave this charge shortly after his Thanksgiving service in Isukwato local government area. Also speaking during the Thanksgiving, the governor of the state regretted the poor state of the road, promising to prioritize access roads.
Once you're in this politics, don't lose hope. Don't think that if you don't win today, you will not win again. And once somebody have won the election, to be a good sports person, you must give the person support. For me, like I said earlier, last week, that trended all over the world. When I told the people, elections have come and gone. Now it's about governance. And whoever God has given that mandate to represent the people, you must respect that institution. Because today, why I'm representing you is that institution that brought me to this place. So for that reason, and that is why I always say, whoever that is in that seat, give the person that support until either court said otherwise or God said otherwise. We must put Nigeria first. Nigeria is more important than anybody. It's more important than me. In fact, let's leave that for another day, but I can tell you, it's only God that gives power.
And on the allegation that he interfered with his wife's job as president of the Court of Appeal, former lawmaker representing Bauchi North in the 9th Senate, Senator Damo Bokachua, he has dismissed those allegations. Speaking over the weekend, the former senator said the president of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, did not allow him to finish his thoughts as he was misunderstood. According to him, there is no truth in the allegations leveled against him of interfering with his wife's job, as they don't discuss such at home. In response, his wife, Justice Bokachua, has denied ever favoring any person or party in her career. In a statement she released, she says, "I want to state categorically that I never at any time compromised my oath of office to favor any party who appeared before me throughout my judicial career spanning 40 years of service to my country." End of quote. The governor of Taraba State, Dr. Agbu Kefas, has approved the dissolution of all existing boards and commissions still existing in the state under any description referred to. The dissolution is with immediate effect. Members of the boards and commissions affected are expected to hand over all government assets, property, movable and immovable, in their possession to the most senior civil servant in such board within 48 hours from the date of the announcement. This is issued in a statement by the Secretary to the Government of the State, Gebon Kataps. The Governor appreciated all members for their service to the state, wishing them well in their future endeavours. The Zamfara Police State Command says it has returned all vehicles seized from former governor of the state, Bello Matawalle. The command spokesperson, Yazid Abubakar, who confirmed the development via telephone, said the vehicles were returned in compliance with the order of the Federal High Court sitting in Gusau. The court, presided over by Justice Ali Bapa, had June the 15th ordered all security agencies involved in removing the vehicles from Mr. Matawalle's private homes in Gusau and Maradun to return them within 48 hours, and also gave an order of interim injunction restraining the respondents in the suit from taking any further action in connection with the matter. The Zamfara state government had earlier said that more than 40 vehicles, including 3 bulletproof vehicles, 8 SUVs, were recovered from the 2 houses of the former state governor. And over the weekend, some governors were up and about with loads of activities. Let's begin in Katsina State, where Governor Diko Rada led his northwest counterparts to a meeting with President Bola Tinubu. The meeting was based on issues concerning insecurity, agriculture, and other key national issues. On Saturday, he also met with the ambassador of the state of Qatar, Dr. Ali Ben Ghanem Al-Juri, at the Embassy of Qatar in Abuja. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss potential collaboration between Katsina State and the state of Qatar in various sectors of the economy. For the governor of Kaduna State, Uba Sani, his administration's drive for investments in order to revitalize the economy of the state says is beginning to yield results. As the Kaduna State government, he entered into a tripartite agreement with the Embassy of the State of Qatar. He also said that the agreement was reached at the meeting in Abuja with the ambassador of the State of Qatar, and that presentations of the documents for the land allocated for mass housing project for less privileged and the economic city. And let's head to Niger State, where Mohamed Bago met with heads of security agencies and traditional rulers in the state to discuss his administration's commitment to a safer Niger State. And in Akwa Ibom State, Governor Umar Eno said he is committed to ensuring food sufficiency and developing the food value chain for major crops in the state. This is after he made an unscheduled inspection of the Ibom Greenhouse Technology Facility along the Airport Road, Uyo. He said that the government will prioritize agri-business growth, the Ibom Greenhouse, and other strategic initiatives. For the Kano State Governor, Abba Kabir Yusuf, as part of the government's resolve to reposition the education sector by giving it the needed intervention, he approved the immediate settlement of the National Examination Council, NECO, outstanding charges to enable 55,000 students of public schools sit for the 2023 senior school examination. And finally, on security, Governor Dauda Lawal had a closed-door meeting with the Chief of Defence Staff at the Defence Headquarters on internal security, which also includes close collaboration and cooperation with the military. And you've been served lunch this hour. Stay with Channels Television, where we bring you all-round news coverage of events in Nigeria and around the globe. Thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker.